with JP Morosi leading the league in information. And JP, let's start with the catching market because we've all assumed that the Mets would be fighting everybody off at the bat rack for a crack at JT Realmuto. And it may still be the case, but we understand that there's another name that's on their catching radar.
Yes, Matt and Ron, good morning. Some news yesterday, first reported by Robert Murray, that there's been some very intense conversations between the Mets and free agent catcher James McCann. Now, I was told last night by a source confirming that initial report by Robert Murray that, yes, conversations have intensified the last 48 hours or so between the Mets and James McCann, and that still as of last night there were some other teams involved, but dare I say right now, James McCann appears to be a more likely catcher in Queens than would be JT Realmuto. Now, of course, he had been let go earlier in his career by the Tigers, and now, of course, goes to the White Sox and really rebuilds some impressive numbers. You see what he's done the last two seasons. A key thing from a standpoint of his overall market was they already have Yasmani Grandal with the White Sox, and I think James McCann really impressed a lot of people around the game, not just with his production this past year, but how he handled the changing role, where the White Sox went out there and signed a top-notch free agent last winter to play the very same position, and you heard zero complaining from James McCann about that. He's a total pro, and I think really impressed a lot of people. So there's been a lot of intense conversation there between the Mets and McCann's camp. It would not surprise me if ultimately that's where he ends up. But again, I was told as of last night, still multiple teams involved on what is a very promising, really prime age free agent catcher there in James McCann.
Hey, JP, I was just thinking, there's some gamesmanship involved here. You really want to get someone involved and to call your number. Talk to the other catcher involved, who's probably the most important free agent. But, let's say the Mets end up signing McCann to a 4-year contract. Where does that put Realmuto as far as contract and as far as teams that are interested?
Well, it's an excellent question, Ron, and certainly because we had talked so much earlier on in the offseason about the Mets linking up with Realmuto, it would be a bit of a reset if he doesn't go back there. And, of course, we've all seen the reports in recent days and weeks about the Phillies' financial constraints and their struggle to re-sign their own top-notch free agent in JT Realmuto. So I would say staying in the National League East, perhaps the most likely team to get Realmuto in that situation would be the Washington Nationals. They know they've seen him up close for the entirety of his career. First the Marlins, and then the Phillies. Just what a great two-way catcher JT is. And that would be a real win, I think, for the Nationals when you consider the way that their club is set up. Yes, they still have some pitching to get, but the top of their rotation, you would assume, is in pretty good shape with Strasburg and Scherzer. And there you see what Realmuto has done. So certainly this would not be well received by the noted former National and Bryce Harper if, in fact, Realmuto goes back to play in our nation's capital. But I do think the Nationals are in the market for a catcher, and in so many ways, Realmuto fits their club as well as he fits any other club. He knows the division so well, knows their pitching very well from, of course, hitting against their pitching for the entirety of his career. I like that fit. Nationals and Realmuto, if in fact McCann is the guy who signs with the Mets.
Yeah, I mean, look, we could make a case for Realmuto with any team, save maybe the 1975 Reds. He's going to make whoever he signs with a lot better, as would a number of the relievers on the market. JP, yesterday we documented the vast number of relievers on the free agent market. Is there any sifting through these names, any dots you can connect between players and teams at this hour?
Well, Matt, this is, to me, one of the more fascinating parts of the free agent market at the moment because we have a tremendous amount of supply and also pretty high demand where if I was going to cross the lines between players on this side and teams over here, it's going to be a very crowded crisscross because there's a lot of different matchups to make there, starting with, I think, the top free agents out there right now, Brad Hand from the left side, Liam Hendriks from the right side. And oh, by the way, the market got even more crowded this week with the addition of Archie Bradley, who was somewhat surprisingly non-tendered by the Cincinnati Reds. Blake Treinen is still out there. And I think it was interesting that Treinen's role is really the one that Corey Knebel is going to now take with the Dodgers. They're a team that I believe would still add one more reliever. Maybe even Brad Hand could be that possibility. The San Francisco Giants, the Atlanta Braves. Looking around a lot of different clubs, I think there's tremendous interest there. Obviously, the Reds now having let go of Archie Bradley. They, of course, still have Raisel Iglesias, but I would say the Reds are a team that need to find a way to add in perhaps one more layer to their bullpen. The Chicago White Sox, with their situation, yes, they still have Alex Colomé there, but I think to me there's a lot to like about the White Sox being a club that needs to find a way to get a little bit more relief pitching as well. So I look at it as being a very robust market overall for relief pitching, and I do think that as the days grow now and the days ahead, I think even the Toronto Blue Jays, for example, we've linked them to so many different free agents, but rightfully so. They're looking to spend right now in a lot of ways. So it's still, as we speak right now, guys, a very crowded free agent market for pitchers, relief pitchers, in the early days of December.
JP Morosi with some good information on a Friday to kick us off. The final day of the week and the final day before what would have been winter meetings week next week. We'll talk about that a little bit later on in the program. JP, thanks